If you find yourself in the Philippines, maybe you've met a girl that is everything you've ever dreamed of, and she asks you to build a house, run. Run as fast as you can, because you don't want things to happen to you like they did to me. I'm sharing this as a warning to other guys, because there's nothing fun about losing most of your money to a girl that you thought loved you. You may see it on YouTube. Guys talking about how they built their dream house and how they're living the so-called dream with their Filipino wives. Liars. That's all I can call them. Be careful what you see and do, because you need to know the truth. I fell for that same trick, and it's amazing how quickly things can go downhill and deteriorate. I actually find it quite scary how somebody can change from everything you ever dreamed of into someone who fits the perfect description of what you escaped your own country to get away from. Perhaps you're in a relationship at the moment with someone from the Philippines. And I know, from time to time, there can be very successful relationships like that. Yet, how many are there? Do you really know your partner? I thought I did, but I most certainly did not. I know I'm going to get a lot of stick in the comments, but to be honest, I deserve it. I had no idea what I was doing. I was just drawn into the illusion that I was living every guy's dream. A girl over half my age who said she loved me, who said age was just a number, yet who deep down wanted nothing more than to take everything I had worked hard for, because she lacked the ability to be able to work and make any reasonable amounts of money. I'm slightly different to some of the guys who feel sorry for the people in the Philippines who don't have much money. I used to feel sorry for them, but not really anymore. Because from time to time, you'll be in the Philippines and you'll come across a guy from there who's made an absolute fortune, who came from nothing. There are quite a lot of people like that in the Philippines, and I think people don't understand that. Yet, they all seem to have something in common. Something very different to the ones who don't have anything. And that tends to be an unwavering ambition to succeed at all costs. And when you speak to guys like that, it's clear that if they can do it, they think so can everyone else. But that's the thing, not everybody has the ability, therefore in the Philippines it's more difficult. Perhaps I'm just overly skeptical because of what happened to me, so I'll let you know exactly what happened. Looking back, there were so many red flags. I had no business to go down that path. But I was blind, almost colourblind if you will, as if the colour red was no longer showing up as red anymore, and I just went along with things. That's how it honestly felt, so be careful. I'm probably also going to get stick from guys after they know where I met my wife. I was in Manila around 3 years ago, having a kebab just on the corner of P. Burgos Street. You might know the place if you've been, a Middle Eastern style restaurant which also had shishas, which from time to time I liked to enjoy. I just finished up with my kebab, about to go for a few drinks in some of the bars close by. Yet as soon as I walked out of the restaurant, I was approached by a girl. I've been to the Philippines at least 10 times before this, so I knew what the situation was around an area like that. And most of the time, if you saw girls around or guys selling all kinds of stuff that you'd have no interest in, you'd usually walk to the other side of the street and walk on that sidewalk instead. But the girl who approached me just looked like the type of girl that was for me. We all have our types and preferences. I mean, even girls have their types and preferences, what they like to see in guys, and that girl ticked all the boxes in terms of appearance. But I wasn't one of the guys who just liked to see someone and not really get to know them. As much as I loved the bars around there, I was more of a go for a drink and look type of guy, and if I wanted to meet someone for a relationship or a potential relationship, I would usually go on a dating site and meet someone at a cafe in the daytime. So I wasn't the typical guy who would usually even find himself in such a position. Why is it that in most stories, regardless of who they're told by, their girl they met was different? I've spent quite a lot of time thinking about this. I've seen other guys try to explain it before. Sometimes guys explain it better than others. But for me, it was similar to saying, well, my mom is different to yours because she's mine and I know everything about her, and therefore to me, she is far more important than yours. I mean, that's just an example. But for yours, you feel the exact opposite. So in that sense, everybody is different. So if we meet a girl and we feel she's different, that feeling of difference is real in as far as this is what we're thinking about it in our own thoughts. As far as I was concerned, she was different, different to all the other girls I'd seen in the Philippines. Because perhaps you meet a girl in a bar, for example, and you just have a drink and a bit of a chat. You don't have any feelings towards her, so she's just one of those girls. You might do that 100 times, and you end up mixing all these girls into the same pot, and that might be completely unjustified. But when you meet a girl you like, of course she's different, because she's making you do different things and giving you different feelings that you've never felt before. So, I hope my description of this gives some form of understanding to guys who actually think they're with a girl who's different. I'm trying to warn you that it's your mind playing tricks on you. I think it's important to talk about this because since I had something happen to me, a guy I was friends with, he wasn't a close friend, but he lived in a similar area to me, in a rented house. He saw me do everything I did. Then he saw me fail. He saw me lose most of my money. Yet even though he saw that, he started to do the same thing that I did. The same thing that cost me nearly everything because he thought his girl was different. Now, maybe she is, for him. But when I looked at his girl, she was definitely not different. She was mixed up with all the rest. He only stopped building his house a year ago, and he's living in it now, so I hope he will still be living there until he no longer has the desire to. Yet give it a few years, and I would bet quite a lot of money he won't be there anymore. It's just a few tricks from a guy who's nearly lost everything, and I knew what I was doing. I thought I did, but I didn't. My first time in the Philippines was all the way back in 1992. What a different place it was then. I was only there for a week. It was a treat to myself for my 30th birthday, and I wanted to go somewhere very different. The main reason was because my old man was stationed there, and he also told me lots of wild stories about everything he did in the Philippines. Yet he got married at home to a girl he had known since high school, and they were together until he sadly passed away. And my mom followed a few years after. But if that was anything to go by, I should have thought, as much as he loved the Philippines, he didn't marry someone from there, although he did say he had a good time. But that was one of the main reasons I wanted to go, just to go and see if what he said was actually true. My first time in Manila was an experience like no other. I was in my hotel on the very first day, and all of a sudden, the power goes off. This place didn't have a generator, so I go downstairs and they just tell me it's normal. It was off for hours. And that was my first time in the city. Constant blackouts, and it's very different to how it is today. I did go to Angeles City, being that that was where the American base used to be, where my dad was stationed, and I can safely say that it was far more wild then than it is today. And I had a great time in 1992. I got married at home not long after that. That relationship lasted for 15 years, so during that time, I didn't have a chance to get back to the Philippines. I always thought about the Philippines as a country I loved more than everywhere else I'd been, but after getting divorced, losing custody of my son, and being on the hook for regular payments to my ex-wife, I did manage to go back in 2007. It definitely wasn't like it was 15 years before. Things had progressed at such an alarming rate. I was amazed about how quickly things were moving forwards. Back at home, things tend to increase at a steady pace, yet in the Philippines, for every 10 years of development there, perhaps at home, we're only getting 1 year now, and it was amazing to see how much it had changed. On the same trip, I went to Thailand as well. I'd heard people talking about it as being better than the Philippines, yet, as much as I enjoyed my time there, I didn't think I would need to go back because I really preferred the Philippines. It was when I was in Thailand when I met a guy who to this day is still a friend. He lives in Thailand, or he lived there, he actually moved back to England a few years ago. He's been to the Philippines and said how much he preferred Thailand. So I think the Philippines is more popular with people from the States, yet Thailand perhaps more popular with people from Europe. That is a very big generalization, so please understand that. But that might be an overall more accurate picture. I was in construction most of my life. It gave me a reasonable living, but because of getting divorced at the age of 45, most of the hard work I'd done from the age of 20 until I reached that age was lost. My son today has never got married because he fears losing out on what he's worked for, but he seems to have taken things to the extreme. But when you see things like that happening to your old man, what else was he meant to think? But what I was trying to say with regards to my job and finances, I went many times to the Philippines between 2007 and 2022. Of course, there was the COVID break, but 2022 was when I was finally able to retire, and I had approximately $500,000. I felt like that was a huge amount of money in the Philippines, but I didn't really think I had anything to worry about. Knowing what I know now, I wish I had invested the money, but I wasn't the type of guy who knew anything about that world. I just had my savings, and I thought it would last. Over the years of visiting the Philippines, I had quite a few girlfriends. Some of them I kept in touch with for a few months after, and I saw them maybe the year after as well, when I returned, but I never felt like I wanted anything more to do with them. I think the main reason behind that was because I knew I would have to leave, and dealing with long-distance relationships or having to go through the almighty process of taking her back to the States with me, I didn't want to be in that position, so I suppose that's why I never got serious. For the most part, I managed to stay clear of anything serious over the years, so it was always in the back of my mind that when I eventually retired to the Philippines, I would meet someone and settle down, and start to live the retired life. That was my plan anyway. But, as can be the case, plans often have a way of not panning out like you hoped or expected, and that's why I find myself in the position I am today. But with regards to the Philippines, I'd been going for years, I loved it, it was my favourite place in the world, and all I wanted to do was see out the rest of my life there with a great girl, in a great house, in a great location. And it just so happened that that girl I met outside that Middle Eastern restaurant on P. Burgos Street would become my world a lot quicker than I thought possible. I'd actually retired in mid-2021, and I found myself just waiting until the Philippines opened. I will admit to being one of the guys who got the vaccine for the sole purpose of being able to travel, and as soon as I could get myself to the Philippines quarantine-free, I was ready. I had just turned 59 when I retired. I still rented a small place, the same place I rented ever since I lost out on the house that I used to have that all of a sudden became my ex-wife's, that she didn't work for. I think it's important that guys who have been through that say it as it is, because it's more fuel on the fire of warnings, letting guys know if you do the wrong thing it could happen to you. I found myself just waiting until I could eventually go to the Philippines, and at the end of February 2022, everything was good for me to finally go to the Philippines and start living the retirement I dreamed of for years. Secondly, ever since I got a divorce from my ex-wife, it felt weird to be in the Philippines. My last time was 2018, and it really does make you understand that it's a very different part of the world. People just did what they're told, really, and I suppose they still do. Back at home, people hated when the government told them to do anything, such as wearing a mask or imposing restrictions. I think for us, we don't think the government has a right to tell us what to do. We feel like we should be able to take our own risks regardless of the consequences. Yet in the Philippines, if people are told to wear masks, the vast majority of them will comply without any questions. There may be a few people who don't like it, but they are still going to comply because everybody else does so. It is very different in Asia in that sense, where people seem to be happy to do what they're told. Not being from there, I also didn't mind. If the government in the Philippines tells me to wear a mask, that's fine with me. Yet if my own government tells me to do that, that's when I start to have a problem. But anyway, that's not really what this story is about. But that was it. 2022, I'd retired to the Philippines, and to start with, I rented a small condo in BGC. It was never my favourite part of the city from previous visits, but in terms of living there full time, I thought it was a good choice. Yet any time I wanted to go somewhere, I would usually go to Makati. For example, if I wanted to go out for a drink or for something to eat. Now, of course, there are some fantastic restaurants and bars in BGC, but what attracted me to the Philippines in terms of entertainment was outside of BGC. To me, BGC was great for living. It's cheap to be able to go anywhere in a taxi, and I was more than happy with that arrangement. Sitting in the traffic, though, that can be a bit stressful, but when you're retired and you don't have anything to do, you don't mind if it takes an extra 30 minutes to go somewhere. It's not like you have anything to do when you get there that's urgent. And it was one of those little excursions to Makati where I met that girl outside that Middle Eastern restaurant, and things seemed to move extremely quickly. Far quicker than I ever expected possible. And I don't really know, if I look back, how things did move that fast, because I was usually the sort of person to take things slowly, make sure I was aware of all the risks. But sometimes you do stupid things. This was most definitely one of them for me. I was approaching 60, she was 27, from a small village in northern Luzon. Luzon wasn't definitely my first choice of places to live. Manila, for example, I didn't really want to live there permanently. I was hoping to live somewhere closer to a beach in some of the southern places in the Philippines. But she was from there, and the feelings I had told me that she was the best girl I'd ever seen, and the thought of living somewhere like that started to sound interesting. When I met her and started to get to know her, I wasn't yet thinking about doing anything serious like building a house, but she moved in with me around April 2022. She had 2 kids from a previous relationship. It's extremely difficult to find girls in the Philippines, even over 21 or 22, who don't have kids, especially if they're from that particular place in the Philippines, a rural village. And I suppose that's why many guys look for girls younger than them, because they don't have kids yet. But at 27, she had 2 kids, and I suppose I couldn't do anything about that. When I say it's hard to find a girl in the Philippines who doesn't have kids, now if you're looking at a professional girl or someone from Manila from a rich family, for example, that's a bit different. I'm talking about girls from villages a long way away from cities who don't tend to have much money. I don't know what it was about her, though, that attracted me. She was very beautiful, but not only that, she always seemed to be happy, even when something happened that meant she shouldn't be happy. She always made me feel better when I was down. So after 3 months of living together, there was no person I would rather be with than her. As you'd expect, I was able to support her financially when she moved in with me. I just had my savings sat in a bank, and I just took money out when I wanted. I just thought I'd have enough to see me out. I was never any good with money, so I suppose one tip to anyone wanting to move somewhere else: be good with money and know what your budget is and don't go over it. But I was giving her $400 a month, which I knew was quite a lot, but I also knew that that should make her happier, and therefore I should be happier and have a better time of my retirement. That's what it was all about. I wanted to be happy, I wanted her to be happy, and I wanted to settle down and live the retired life like I'd always wanted. It was never my plan to stay permanently in Manila. As much as I loved the city, living there all the time was difficult. And while you don't mind sitting for half an hour in traffic because you don't have anything else to do, it does wear you down. I longed for the quiet life, and after 3 months, we're already starting talking about getting married and for her to take me where she came from. I completely loved everything about her, and if there's such a thing as being under somebody's spell, I think I can admit I was under hers. The small village she came from was just over 500 kilometers north of Manila. It takes a bit of time getting used to kilometers as opposed to miles in the Philippines, but once you start to understand it, as much as you try to push back and wish they would use miles, it does start to make more sense. Everything in multiples of tens, hundreds, and thousands, as opposed to these weird and what seem to be random units that make up a mile. The 500 kilometers would involve driving past or even through Angeles City, so we thought what would be the best way to go there. When we were thinking about this, just over 3 months into the relationship, this was the first time she asked for money for an emergency for her sister. Her sister was younger than her, who was still at school, and the family's motorcycle had broken down, and getting her to school now was very difficult. So I was asked if I could buy a motorcycle for her family, so her sister could be taken to school easily. I gave the money for that. At the time, I'm not thinking I shouldn't give her the money, even though if the roles were reversed and I was my friend and my friend was me, I would tell my friend, don't be insane, don't give her that money. But again, that goes back to our belief that somebody is different, because in our mind they actually are. So that was the first thing I bought over and above the $400 a month I was giving to her. I knew I wanted to be in the Philippines permanently. That's where I'd always wanted to retire. And it was coming up to my girlfriend's birthday, and I had this overwhelming urge to buy a car in the Philippines so I could get about. And I have to admit to buying it for her as a birthday present, on the understanding that I would always be able to use it, And if we ever had any issues, the car would be given back to me. That's something that I still can't work out. I don't know why I did that. I tried to think about it, but I really don't know why I did it. I could have bought it for myself very easily, but I didn't. That was over 1,000,000 pesos. But I was retired. I thought I had enough money to last until my last breath, and I wanted to make her happy because I was the happiest I'd been for a very long time. I was where I wanted to be with a great girl, about to embark on a fantastic journey up to her village. It was because I was in the moment that I did it, I think. If I wasn't in the moment, or if I gave myself more time to think about it, perhaps I wouldn't. But I did it, so it is what it is. 2 weeks after, we set off to her village. She'd never driven a car before, so I had to drive it, and it does take quite a lot of getting used to driving in the Philippines. They've got a very different system there and different rules, and if you're not very comfortable driving in a busy situation, I would advise against it if driving scares you. We stopped off in Angeles City on the way, and I had a good time with her going into some of the bars along Red Street. It's changed a lot since I went first, but I always liked going because it reminded me of the times I spent in the Philippines before, so it was good to spend some days there. But after that, we drove about 8 hours north, finally arriving in her village very late on one evening. She told her family we were going, and I was offered that I could stay at their house, which I thought was very kind and I gladly accepted. Yet when I got there, it wasn't exactly like I was expecting it to be. But I did spend the night there in what can only be described as a half outside kitchen area where they used to cook, and I was lying on the floor with only a blanket and a mosquito net. It was an experience that in my younger days I would have enjoyed, but when you're 60, that wasn't my idea of fun. It was good to meet her family though. I found out that she had 4 sisters and 5 brothers. Most of them, who were already over 20, had left and gone to work in Manila, just like my girlfriend had, but her youngest sister was still living there, and I did see the bike that I bought for them as well. The following day, we did find a hotel, but it wasn't very good, but it was far better than sleeping on the floor. The experience of going there, in a way, reinforced my belief that the girl I was with was everything I thought she was. She was incredible around her family and with her sister. She was always trying to help, always trying to do the right thing, and she just seemed like everything I would want in a girl. But her family were informed that we were going to get married, and they all seemed very happy about that. We were going to go back to Manila to do all that, but before we left, she asked me for a big favor. She pointed around in the family's house about everything that was wrong and needed fixing, and she said for a wedding present, could I help her family fix the house? I don't know why I said yes again, but I gave them $10,000. I was happy to at the time. I don't know why, but I was really happy to. But looking back at myself from the outside, I would have been screaming, don't be stupid. But I was stupid, and that was another $10,000 gone right there. You can imagine my girlfriend was extremely grateful. And perhaps it was because of that gratitude and seeing how happy her mother and father were, and I kind of fed on that admiration. I think that's a very good way to put it. It was like you were admired and respected and looked up to, and I wanted to maintain that position, even though it was a highly inaccurate opinion. I'll try and condense the next bit, but we went back to Manila, and over the course of 2 months we got married, and I felt like our relationship just got stronger and stronger. She was exactly like I thought my wife would be. The way she behaved, the way she talked, the things she did, the things she didn't do, everything was exactly like I wanted my wife to be. At the same time, of course, I'm trying to be the husband that she wants me to be, and she's not showing any indication that I'm not the husband that she wants. And I'm very happy, and I can't wait to continue with the relationship. And my retirement in the Philippines is going great. During those 2 months, she introduced me to her sister, who was working in Manila. She was 2 years older, and when I found out that she was in a similar position to my now wife when I met her, again, when it was asked, could I help her out with a little bit of money so she can stop doing that, maybe go and learn something and get a better job? Again, I said yes. The thing is, at the time, I was actually really happy to be able to say yes, but that's not who I ever was. I'm not being someone who I ever was, and I think it was because of all the validation I was getting. It was like I was it, and everyone had to come to me for things, and it was up to me to say yes or no. And in a way, it was as if I could make someone's dreams come true, yet they knew if I didn't want to, I wouldn't. So it was like I had a lot of power. This is me looking back, trying to rationalize the decisions I made. So if that's accurate or not, I don't know. But somehow, I gave her sister $5,000. I'm just looking at my bank, and after everything I've bought and everything I've spent, there's still $410,000 there. I should have been screaming at myself, "You've just spent $90,000 in less than a year." That should have made me scared. I should have said that should have been over 3 years. But I didn't. I just saw 410,000 and thought, oh, that's a lot of money. We spent another few months in Manila. We went to stay in a nice resort on Bohol for 2 weeks as well. And then it was time to go back up to her village and start putting into place round 2 of my retirement. This was at the end of 2022, beginning 2023, and I'm looking at my bank with 400,000 in it now thinking I've still got a lot of money, so there really is nothing to worry about. It's more than enough to buy some land, build a house, and live out my days. If only it had been that simple. Instead of telling you everything that I did this, then I did that, and then I waited a bit, and then I did this, I'm going to tell you in chronological order how everything went so wrong so fast, so I hope that's okay. But we arrive, and it was already sort of decided that we were going to stay, so we rented a place close by. By close, I mean 30 minutes away from where we actually wanted our house to be. From then, we proceeded to buy some land. I trusted my wife way too much if I think about it, and now I am quite certain that she made a large amount of money out of the land purchase. We were looking around for land for a long time, and the prices seemed crazy. I did a bit of research online, yet I couldn't find anything in the same area where we were. And when you see land for sale, you don't know anything about it, so I trusted her that the land was worth it. I paid $35,000 for it. Looking back, I think it was only worth $10,000 maximum, so I am pretty sure she pocketed the rest. Now we had the land, it was time to build. I said I didn't want to spend more than $100,000, and my wife said that was a lot of money and that would be fine. I should have said $50,000, but I didn't want to say $50,000 and then overspend. I didn't think if I said $100,000 I would overspend. I thought more like it would come under budget. But the construction of the house came to $140,000. By the time it's already 3/4 finished, you can't stop the construction, so I wouldn't be surprised if she pocketed some of that money as well. But the house itself was very big, way too big for what we needed, and I don't know why I thought I needed to spend that much money. 50,000 could have built something adequate, but I think at this point I'm just trying to get it all out of my system, all the things I'd never been able to do throughout my entire life. I'd never been the guy who could just build a house, or the guy who could just buy a piece of land or just go and buy a car, and the people I was surrounding myself with were so far away from me in terms of what they had. It was almost as if I was addicted to the feeling of being this big guy in the small Philippines village, as ridiculous as that sounds. Then I spent another $25,000 on everything inside the house, and we moved in around October 2023. Then you start looking at your bank and you think, where did all the money go? I've only got $200,000 left, but I'm still thinking to myself, I'm 61, I know how much my insurance is, and aside from that, it's just basic living, so I doubt I'll get to 81, and you're putting all the negative thoughts to the back of your mind as if to think it's never going to happen, so we moved in and I was still very happy. Her 2 kids, which I'd already met, who were living with her parents, when we talked about building the house, I made it quite apparent, given the fact I spent money to fix her parents' house, that I didn't want her kids moving in with us permanently. I didn't mind if they were to come occasionally, maybe once or twice a week, but I didn't want them moving in permanently because I was retired and I wanted a peaceful retirement. And my wife agreed to that up front. Yet one day, I'm watching TV, very happy, in the fact I'm retired in a house in a beautiful part of the Philippines. And at the same time, my wife arrives with her kids, and her mother and father, who have got a lot of her kids' things, and they're all being put into one of the spare bedrooms. My wife just looks at me and says, I think it would be better if my kids lived here full time. I hope you don't mind. Of course I did mind. I told her, in a normal voice, I thought we already had an arrangement. I wasn't trying to get angry or anything, and she just said, yeah, I changed my mind, I want them to live here. That's when I got angry, in front of her mother and father and the kids. The first time I'd ever been angry with her. I'd never been angry before with her, and she was quite shocked. I was exceptionally angry. I was prepared to compromise and let them stay once or twice a week, but not full time. Her youngest child was only 5 years old, And oftentimes in the Philippines, people live with their parents until they're 20 or even 21 or older. Does that mean I've got to go through my entire retirement with your kids disturbing me? Her mother and father just left, and the kids were there, and I was very disappointed with her. We'd already had an agreement, and she'd broken it. But then she tries to make it up, saying, "Don't worry, I won't change. I will be more happy because my kids are here, and I'll be even nicer to you because of it." And then you find her being a lot nicer than normal, and all of a sudden she's asking if you can pay for private education for her two children at a place quite a long way away from where we lived, which would mean adding a lot of mileage to the car, as well as me spending a lot of money. But because she's doing nice all of a sudden, I just agreed to spend another $10,000 per year, $5,000 per child. And that was basically my whole budget to see me out. I very quickly realized I shouldn't have done that, and a few days later, she'd not yet found the school. I told her, actually, I can't really afford that, I hope it's okay. But to her, it wasn't okay because I'd already agreed. And then I say, you'd already agreed that your kids wouldn't move into the house, but you changed that, so why can't I change this? And then we had an argument. Girls are the same the world over. They're always right, and when they're wrong, they're right. And as a guy, you've just got to accept that. But I never felt the same about her again after that. Being woken up in your retired years in a house you've spent a lot of your money on, it's not fun. In fact, I wouldn't wish it on anybody. And after putting up with it for a few weeks, I told her there's no chance I'm going to pay for that private school. It's not going to happen. She was very upset, but I told her I can't afford it, so you've got to accept it. And she reluctantly had to. But now I'm starting to think, with what money I've got, I need to be careful, and I can't go over budget anymore. That's when you start to realize just how many times she's asking for money, just how many times I've spent money on things I shouldn't have done and on things I didn't want. It was almost as if my reaction before was just to give her the money without even thinking about it, trying to put it to the back of my mind, the fact that I was spending my retirement money on things because I just wanted to maintain my level of happiness with regards to the relationship. Now, though, I promised myself I wouldn't do it anymore. And then, every 2 or 3 days when she's asking for money, I'm saying no, and that's when the relationship really broke down. That's the thing, the amount of times she asked for money, it was as if I didn't even pay attention, and I tried to put it to the back of my mind and overlook that fact and just ignore it, even though money was actually going out. As soon as I started to say no, that's when things changed. It got worse and worse throughout 2023 and into 2024. I was at the end of my rope, and I want to sum it up exactly. I loved my wife, I loved the house, I loved where it was, everything was great. But I didn't love the things my wife did. I didn't love her kids. I didn't love she would always ask for money, and I didn't love the fact that she now had the house over me, and she was only being the wife I remembered when I caved into her demands. I'd become everything I had always hated, and I knew I needed to make a decision quickly before I wouldn't even be able to stay in the Philippines. It was actually January 2025, not long ago, somewhere close to the end of the month, and I'm just watching a rerun of a basketball game, and she comes inside and said that the bike that I bought is broken, that one I bought for her family, and they're going to need a new one, so can you buy one, please? I just looked at her and said, no, I'm not giving you any more money, we've already been through this, and she just stormed out. Her and the kids didn't come back for 3 days. And when she did, she was just behaving in a way as if she was waiting for me to say, okay, here's the money for the bike. But I didn't. I just looked at her and said, what happened to you? She just said, nothing. What happened to you? You happened to me, I said. House, car, everything. You were perfect. Now you're not. What happened? She said, nothing. How can girls say that? You could clearly tell there was something wrong, and it was the fact I wasn't willingly giving money any time she asked like I used to do. I even told her I'm going to have to reduce her monthly income from $400 to $300 a month, so get over it. I was on the way back to Manila by February, the end of February. Of course, the car that I bought, which was meant to be given back to me if it didn't work out between us, was kept by her. But I had to get myself out of the situation while I still had a chance to maintain some kind of retirement. I'm now living in Cebu, in a very small rental. I've got $160,000 left, and I spend as little as I can. I do get a bit of interest, but that doesn't give me much, and I do think it should see me out. But I wanted to share this because it's just so crazy how it happens to so many guys. We do things we don't want to do. We do things we really don't want to do, and then we look back and don't know why we did it. And that was exactly what I did. And it's basically ruined my life. I'm not living the retirement I expected. I'm not able to go away at the weekend or somewhere to a nice resort. I'm not able to go and eat at nice restaurants all the time. I'm living a very basic existence. But I suppose I am still in the Philippines, yet not in the way I wanted to be. Ever since, I've been trying through a lawyer to get something back out of it, and I do hold out hope that over the next year, maybe I will get something, but probably not. But you have been warned. The only thing I would say to any guy who wants to get in a relationship in the Philippines, make sure she always needs you more than you need her. If you need her more than she needs you, all the fun and enjoyment from the relationship will completely evaporate because she doesn't need you anymore. Please pay close attention to that. You have been warned. And while you've already been warned multiple times before by many guys who have made these mistakes, while you're probably not going to pay any attention and you're going to do the same thing anyway, at least you can look back at this video and think, I wished I'd listened to that guy.